have, this is Journeyman Alyna's Gandalf Satchel class. It will go until 3 o'clock. If the class runs over, please join her on the after class Discord channel where she can finish showing you the process or answer any sewing related questions you might have. Go ahead and take it away.
Well, hi everyone. Journeyman Alyna here, and today we're going to make this fun little satchel. You probably can't even see it. Leta, you're still primary there. Oh, there we go. We're going to make this little satchel that goes with Gandalf the Grey's costume. That's backwards. Sorry. But for those of you that don't have a handout, I do have a handout all ready to go. So I need to turn the camera around and we'll get started. This is my lovely workspace here. Oh, come on. Cooperate. There we go. We should be able to see my entire work surface. Now, for this tutorial, you will need approximately, or you should need exactly 1 yard of fabric. And I wrote it specifically that way so that you could fit it on just 1 yard of fabric. This fabric is 57 inches wide. So on the fold, it's about 29. But I also wrote it for fabric that you could get easily at Walmart, which is 54 inches wide. So our first step is you want to prep your fabric and wash it. And I have my other camera here so that I can see myself. Okay. So yes, you want to prep your fabric by washing it and pressing it flat. I sometimes skip the pressing part, but that's because I'm lazy. Well, not necessarily lazy, it just takes a lot of time and it's hot in the summer. Okay, so our first step is we're going to true up our edge here because you can kind of see, but it's going at an angle here. So I'm going to be using a rotary blade and my extra long ruler and my cutting mat. I understand that not everybody has these tools, but this is the tools that work best for me. So I'm going to line up with my 0 line and the edge of my fabric on the fold, and then true up that corner and cut that right off. Now we have a nice clean edge to measure things. Hand it under, make sure I'm not skipping steps. Next, we're going to measure 14 inches down, and that is the width of our bag. So I'm going to line up my ruler with a 14-inch mark and the corresponding mark up here on my cutting mat. This makes it easy. If you're just using scissors with a ruler, you can mark your fabric at the 14-inch line. Here at the other end, 14 inches, mark, and draw your line. This is a marker. But since I have a rotary blade and a cutting mat, I can just go slice. So this is the main body of our bag, and I made it so that you can make your lining out of the same material. You don't have to use your lining from the same material, but with the way I sell this bag is it has the same material inside and out. So we move over another 14 inches. Make sure this is 14 inches and not some wacky doodle other measurement. And sorry guys if I'm moving a million miles a minute. I am trying to fit this entire tutorial in 1 hour, and it normally takes me 1.5 hours to 2 hours. I didn't plan this very well. Or no, I've been planning this very well, but ordinarily, yes, rambling. Okay, so this is my second cut. So we have the bag, the main body of the bag, and the lining, and I'm just doing what I call my vertical cuts for now. Next is we cut out, if you're doing the braided strap, which is what is in the original bag, then you cut 3 strap pieces at 2.5 inches wide. Now, for Leta, who's following along, if you're just going to do a single strap, just a single strap for your bag, you're going to do the same width of the fabric, but it's going to be 6 inches wide. So that's the modification for if you are just doing a single strap instead of a braided strap. So ordinarily I would cut at 6 inches, but since I'm doing the braided strap, I'm going to be doing 3 cuts 2.5 inches wide. There's one. There's 2. And there's 3. Now, if you ordinarily have just a regular 1 yard of fabric, you would have just a 1/2 inch left to fuss up with. But since my fabric was just a little bit longer, I have this bit, which I'm just going to toss under where all my other strange bits go. So those are all my vertical cuts done. Does anybody have any questions? Speak up or forever hold your peace. Okay. Anybody? No. All right. So I'm going to set these 3 pieces aside and finish cutting where it didn't cut all the way through, since I was cutting the length of my table. I'm going to set these 3 pieces aside. So now I'm going to do my horizontal cut so that I can get my flap and the height of my bag. So my next cut is 18 inches. So I'm going to take my ruler and measure 18 inches and mark that up from the fold. Then slide over here. That's 19 inches, not 18 inches. Here's 18 inches. And mark again, 18 inches. Then take my long ruler, line this up, and make my cuts. Here we have our lining, which we can set aside, and the main body of our bag. And if you have 54 inches wide, then this is exactly 10 inches. Since mine is 57, it's slightly longer, but I'm not going to fuss with it. So here's our flap. And we're going to take one of these pieces here. We're just going to add a little bit of weight to our flap so that when it's on the bag, it'll hang just a little bit heavier. So I took one of these panels and added it to this. Set that aside. And so now we need to cut.
I missed that. Did you take one of the the double flaps and sew them together?
I'm gonna sew all 3 layers together.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then we're gonna take our remaining piece here, and I'm gonna cut 3 2.5-inch pieces. This is for my strap extension for the braided strap, because when you braid something, it shrinks it by, in this case, it shrinks the strap by about 60 or 6 inches. Leta does not need to cut this piece because with the 6-inch strap, with the width of the fabric at 54 inches, that strap is plenty long. So Leta, you don't have to cut anything else. I'm gonna cut these remaining 3.5 or 2.5-inch wide pieces for the strap extension. So here's my 2.5. Here's my first cut. Here's my second cut. And there's my third piece. So you should only have about this much left over, plus that little 1/2-inch strip if you had exactly 1 yard of fabric, and whatever you trimmed off to square off your fabric. It's very clean and efficient. So now that we have all our pieces cut, we're going to move over to my sewing station where I have my iron. And we're going to start putting our bag together, which also means I have to move the camera. So feel free to ask questions while I transfer over to my workstation. Whee! We're going flying. Don't mind my mess. This is what a working station looks like. All right. Now, I'm going to check for questions real quick on my other device. Any questions? Nope. All right. So at this point, I'm going to deviate a little bit from my tutorial, just in the order of operations a little bit, because I want to be able to get my strap together before I have to change my thread. And I'll probably end up changing this in the tutorial later. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to set up our contrast thread for our Gandalf satchel. And I'm using a white. And another interesting little thing that I'm using is for the strap, we're not going to use a regular straight stitch. We're going to use what is called a stretch straight stitch. And it looks slightly different than the straight stitch. Oh, come on, switch my camera. Okay, so I'm using a Bernina 1008, and lots of other machines have it, and this is the stitch I'm going to use. This is the normal stitch we use, and this is the stitch I'm going to use. And for the settings for my sheen, my stitch length is going to be at a 4, and my needle is going to be to the farthest right position that it can be. And I have this little magnet here as a little seam guide. but we're not going to be stitching just, well, actually, yeah, we're going to stitch one thing real quick, and then we're going to move back to the ironing board. If you have a Singer sewing machine, here we have my husband's Singer Fashionista. This strap is not unique to my machine. It is also available on a Singer machine, and that's this one right here. It's got the triple stitch there instead of just the regular straight stitch. Same setup, you know, if you were to go in, oh, not 10. We would go to stitch 1, and then I would move my needle all the way over and increase my stitch. Well, in this case, it would only let me go up to 3, but on my other machine, it's set at 4. So what we're going to do first is we're going to add our extension pieces to our strap pieces. And the way I did it in my tutorials, the way I did it for forever, and I ended up not liking that setup after a little while because it created kind of a bulky seam, which I didn't like. But first, to prep our little straps, see how there's this little kind of discolored different shade at the end of my strap, and that's because due to the fabric that I have. So some fabrics have this little selvage edge area where the threads are different. I'm going to cut that off of my strap. So I'm going to angle my camera so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to trim that off of my strap and throw it away. Clear as my space. And here is my little extension piece. Now, if anyone's familiar with making bias tape, then you know how to set up a bias tape. Is you set your pieces at a at a 90-degree angle, where you're going to stitch diagonally across, but your pieces are set up at a 90-degree angle. Now, ordinarily, in my how it's written in the tutorial, I just have you lining up your fabrics just like that and just doing a narrow hem. This way, the seam sits a little nicer and reduces bulk. So I'm going to change my settings to a regular stitch. I'm going to center my needle. I centered my needle, put my stitch length to 2.5, and set it up for a straight stitch. I'm not pinning, you can pin, but you just set yourself up at that diagonal and aim towards the other end of the diagonal, and you stitch. Don't forget to backstitch. Go across. And now we have that nice little seam, and we'll just trim it down to 1/4 of an inch or so. Pretty close to the stitching. So now we have kind of like a bias strip, but it's not bias, it was cut on the counter grain. Now for Leta, we're going to catch up with Leta now and just start out to make our strap. So what we're going to do is I'm finger pressing this seam here flat. You don't have to, that's what I chose to do. So I'm going to turn on my iron and rotate the camera just a bit so that we can see my ironing board. Wait for my iron to heat up. And what we're going to do is for Leta, for the single strap, what we're going to do, and for this, basically, is we're going to press. If you don't have an extension, you don't have to worry about it. But for the braided strap, we're going to press it open. And nice and flat. Use a little bit of steam. And next, we're going to go to the end. Trim off this little bit because it's ugly and we don't want to see it. And then to press our strap, we're going to fold it in half to have our lengthwise edges meet.
Right sides together.
Wrong sides together.
Thank you.
And we're going to press this the full length of the strap. Now, I saw this handy little tool on the internet the other day where it just folded it perfectly for you. And I was quite jelly that I didn't have this tool, but it's something to acquire later. Does anybody have any questions? Did I pull things back up because my device fell asleep? Nope. Okay. So with wrong sides together, we're pressing our strap, matching ends, length ends, and see where I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is where our little extension was. So I'm just being extra careful that my edges meet up. And we have this nice, less bulky section where our seam is for the extension. All right, now that we have pressed it in half, one way that you can do is you can open this back up like so, and we're going to fold the raw edge towards that seam, the press line that you just made. And we're going to press that flat.
How much? All the way to the press line, or like 5/8 press it up?
All the way to the press line.
Okay.
So if you're just doing the single strap, yes, you're going to take that raw edge and fold it towards the press line, and you're going to do it on both sides. So both sides towards that press line, so that it looks something like this. Let's zoom in just a little bit. And you press that. And you do that all the way down. As a to speed up this process so that I don't spend a million years at the ironing board, what I do is I make sure that I have my center line press here. And it's all nice and flat. And I just start my folding up here at the top. and clip it or pin it if you have pins or clips. I have clips or pins. You can pin it this way or this way, whichever works for you. And then I go over to my sewing machine. So let's rotate this around to the sewing machine. And I set my folded piece. It looks just like this. The camera will focus. It looks like a piece of bias tape, which is essentially how we've done. And we're going to set it right next to the edge of my foot, right here. Reposition my needle so that it's all the way to the right. Set my stitch length to 4 and switch my setting to that triple straight stitch, which is the stretch stitch. And then I'm going to do a few stitches to start. Sink my needle, and then just below where I just start sitting, I start just finger pressing my strap into that quadruple fold. And I clip that. And I do that, and I fold that again, just a little bit further down. Just to manage the strap. Next, I'll pull my clip, and I like to use this handy dandy little magnet as my seam guide. And I set that flush right up next to my presser foot. That way my strap doesn't tend to wander. And occasionally, if I am going super fast, I have 2 of these magnets. And I set it up right next to the folded edge of my strap. And that way I just sandwich my strap in between these 2 magnets. I understand that not everyone's going to be able to do this, so we'll set these aside. And what you can do to just guide the side is just lay your finger flat like this. If you don't move your finger and don't have it stick up or anything, you shouldn't get run over with your needle. Just be careful. Or you can, just kind of pivot your finger and just have it way out of the way back here, out of your way. So Leta should have her her strap folded in half with the selvage edges folded towards the center fold. Like so. So here are our raw edges, here's the center fold, and then we fold that in half. And this should create, for the single strap, a 2-inch wide strap. And so we're just gonna start.
And we're stitching right on the edge of the non-folded side?
Yes.
Okay.
Where those two folded edges meet. Yes. And we're 1/8 of an inch basically from that edge. If your sewing machine foot is wider than mine. And then truck along. I put my finger here on top just so that my strap doesn't go crazy. And since I didn't press all the way down the full length of my strap, it kind of tends to wander like this, where there's the edges don't meet up. So I kind of put my finger there or pinch kind of like this to make sure that it doesn't, to make sure that it stays where I want it to go. And we go. Sorry if this is loud. Pause, pull our pin. You can hold it this way just to make sure that things don't move. Where I'm kind of pinching my finger and my thumb to this edge, and then I'm just sitting here on top so it doesn't go anywhere. But my touch is very light. I'm just making sure things stay where I want them to stay and not go crazy. Pull our next clip. Oh, and see it wandered just a bit. Sink our needle. Keep our clip there, and then we need to fold some more. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions if you have any. Woo. Also, when you pull your clips, make sure you don't get out of position, which I just did. So I repositioned my stitch and continue as we were. Oops. Now you can see kind of how I'm folding my ends towards my fold, and then I'm kind of finger pressing them flat together. And this really helps as you sew. It's just kind of a quick finger press, but it helps the process go a bit smoother. Oh, and as sometimes happens, the bobbin won this game. So I need to reload my bobbin. So hold that thought. I thought I had a full one, but I guess I was wrong. Does anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts, queries? 11Z's tips, wizard quotes. All right, there we have our bob, all fresh and new. Quick rethread. Quick little trick to get your bobbin thread back up. Learned that from watching a quilter. All right, back to our normally scheduled programming. So we're back to stitching our strap. And since it's already, this stitch is already doing kind of a back stitch, I'm not worrying about back stitching. If you have a oh, yeah. Clip. We're getting closer, guys. We only have this much left. It's a very long strap. And you get to do this 3 times. I prepared for this eventuality that these straps would take for forever to make. They take a good half an hour just to themselves to make all 3 straps. So I have planned ahead accordingly. So once we finish stitching this strap, we will switch over to my prepared strap. Or as I call these, strands. If you have a Venmo, PayPal, or other link, that I'm willing to drop it in the live stream. I have a PayPal that I will type out in the class links after class, but I can't do it right now.
I can type it. Just say it.
My PayPal email is ladyalyana@gmail.com. So it's very similar to my name, except for there's an A between the Y and the N.
Got it.
All right. So here we have one single strand of our strap. And it's quite long. It's approximately 70 plus inches long if we're doing the full 57-inch wide fabric, or in the 54 it's about 65 inches long. So what we're going to do is I'm going to switch my straps to my prepared 3 that I already have done, and we're going to take a safety pin and set up our straps in this sequence. We're going to do our stitching to the left, and then our middle strap stitching to the right, and then our top strap stitching to the left. And we're going to pin those 3 together at the top, like so. So that we're alternating the sides for where our stitching is. I'm going to anchor these straps with my presser foot, if it'll let me, like so. We're gonna spread these out. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3. We're gonna spread it out so that 1 and 2 are outside. Let me make sure I'm saying this exactly as I wrote it, because I've done this so many different times. Yes, okay. And I have diagrams. So I am left-handed, so this is probably going to be backwards for people, but I can try to show you how to start. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to start a 3-strand braid. So it's going to be tricky because it's all kind of bunched up here since it's under our foot. We don't have to ankle it under our foot. We can anchor it under our sewing machine, but then we have to contend with the desk. But this has better light, so I'm just going to put my straps here. So 1 and 2 go on the outside, and then 3 is here in the middle. And since I'm left-handed, I'm going to wrap the topmost strap behind 3. So this is 1, and I'm going to curl it around 3 like that. Then we're going to take 2, which was this other outside one, and then we're going to curl it around our center, like so. And then we're going to wrap over the center strand all the way down, making sure we're doing that twist over the center and just kind of laying things flat over center, over center, over center, and braid all the way down. Thank you, Len, for doing that. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Tidbits, quotes?
I'm going to say we have about 17 minutes left.
Okay. So what you're saying is I got to braid fast. We got it. We got it. We can do this. Now, if you're not doing the braided strap, there's a whole bunch of steps that you don't have to do. And my thing was getting kind of long, so I picked my strand up, anchor it again, and move back into view where y'all can see me again. And I'm about halfway. You just want to kind of make sure that strap stays flat. Braiding, 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 almost done. Almost to the end. All right, here we are to near our end. Looks like we can only get like one more fold on the right outside and one more fold on the left outside, so that our end looks kind of like this. Viewing the camera. What we're going to do is we're going to remove our strand out from underneath our machine, position our needle back to center, decrease our stitch length, and turn it back to a regular straight stitch. And we're just going to sew across that stitch and back stitch. Go over it a couple of times. We don't want it to go anywhere. And trim our ends so that it has a nice kind of triangle shape going on, like so. We take our other end, remove the safety pin, finagle those strands so they'll sit flat, and stitch that end. Now we can construct the bag. We just spent a half an hour making straps and cutting everything out. Woohoo! So now we're going to switch our thread color to our matching thread to our bag. I'm going to do that real quick. So are you with me, Leta? Clear as mud?
I'm good.
Full bobbin. Always good to have. I prepped this ahead of time. Didn't prep my white, unfortunately, but I did prep my gray. They probably should use a contrasting thread for the rest of this, but I've gotten this far. Okay, we're gonna set our strap aside for now. We're gonna take our flap and stitch along 3 of the edges. So I'm going to stitch all in a rectangle all the way around except for this selvage edge using a 1/2 inch seam allowance.
This is all the layers of the flap or just one?
All the layers of the flap, all 3 layers of the flap. So 1, 2, 3, all 3 layers together in a rectangle. If you're not comfortable with the idea that you're not going to be able to hold all three layers together, pin, clip, whatever you need to do, I'm trying to get this done fast, so pins are for pussies. Or no, pins are for beginners. And yeah, it's fine. Pivot that corner. Straighten up my layers. 1/2 inch seam allowance. No, what are you doing? There we go. Sometimes stray threads get caught. All right, now you should have your flap. So we're going to clip our threads if we have any. And in some cases you want to clip your corners, but what I do is I'm going to fold the side edge over along where my stitching is, and then fold the top edge down, reach inside of our flap, and pinch that folded corner and just pull 1 layer of our flap over and push out that corner so that we have this nice crisp corner without having to clip. It is a little bulky, but it gives you a nice smoother corner. Do that on the other side. So this is our outside edge. This is the top. We're going to fold outside edge over, and then the top over, pinch, push that corner out. Now you have this nice flat. Take the iron, press flat, and then you close that bottom edge and baste, which is a long straight stitch, along that selvage edge. How are we doing on time?
9.
9 minutes. Okay. See if we can do this. Okay. Take your main bag fabric and with right sides together, stitch down one side. Here's the top, here's the side edge with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, all starting from the top edge down to the fold. Don't forget to back stitch. Flip it over and do the other long edge, starting at the top, going down to the fold, using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. All right, clip your threads. Fold that outer edge towards the center, pinch, turn your bag right side out. Or just turn it right side out and push out the corners. You don't have to be too particular with these corners. And like so. Repeat for lining. Actually, not exactly repeat. Okay, so you're going to pick one side of your lining and you're going to leave a 6 to 8 inch opening about 2 inches from the bottom on one side. So this is so we can turn our bag. So starting at the top, 1/2 inch seam allowance, gonna go down, eyeball to about halfway, back stitch, skip several inches till close to the bottom, just so that it's wide enough to fit your hand through so that we can turn the bag. Back stitch again, stitch to the folds. And do the other side just as a regular seam. All right, there we go. Now we take our bag piece and our flap and matching side seams. We're going to clip those together, pressing our bag seam allowance to the opposite side of our flap. Now this is a slightly different than what I have written, just because I've found new and improved and faster ways to do this, which is what I'm showing you guys. All right, I have 5 minutes. So I have 5 minutes. Okay, I can get this far. And you take, since you've clipped your flap to there, we're going to position our strap right next to where our flap is, also on the main bag fabric. Make sure nothing's in the way. using a 5/8 inch seam allowance stitch through the strap and the flap. Now that we're at the other end of our flap, take our strap here, make sure it's not twisted in any way, and lay it down next to our flap under our foot, like so. And back stitch. And that's as far as we're going to get with this recording, because we are out of time. We have 4 minutes left, and woo, I don't think I can describe how to put the lining through and everything in 4 minutes.
Probably not. If you want to go and follow Marie,
I can start a new Zoom meeting over and I'll link that into the Discord in the class after class discussion, and then we'll pick up right from there. So thank you guys for attending my class.
The after class discussion has a video one, so you can just do it right on the Discord.
But I also want to be able to record. So
Okay.
that's why I'm going to do another Zoom. But yes, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending my class, and I will see you in a few minutes.
Thank you. Have a good day.
And then we have in 2 minutes, we have Master Niche is coming on to do her guild Q&A. So stay tuned for 2 minutes and we'll be with that. So Anish, if you wanted to put in the chats your PayPal or whatever, you can do that now, so that Lynn can use it and link it into